It was a sunny Saturday afternoon on Spain's Costa del Sol, a typical summer scene of tourists sipping drinks outside Manhan's bar in Fuengirola. But within seconds, that relaxed atmosphere turned to chaos. A car screeched to a halt outside the Irish pub, and a hooded gunman leapt out, opening fire in broad daylight. As panicked patrons scattered for cover, two men lay fatally wounded at the entrance. Within minutes, the shooters vanished, leaving behind a trail of blood and questions. The victims, now named as 41-year-old Ross Monaghan and Eddie Lyons Jr., both from Glasgow, weren't ordinary holidaymakers. They were key figures in Scotland's most notorious organised crime clan, the Lyons family, and their executions bore the hallmarks of a meticulously planned gangland hit. What made this killing even more shocking was its brazenness. A calculated strike during the Champions League final, in a crowded public place, executed with chilling precision. Spanish police launched a murder probe, while authorities in the UK braced for a ripple effect. Speculation swirled. Was this a revenge attack linked to the decades-long Lyons versus Daniel gangland feud? Or had the internal cracks within the Lyons organisation finally burst open? As Glasgow's criminal underworld holds its breath and European law enforcement gears up for fallout, the message is clear. This was no random attack. It was a statement. And in the murky world of Scottish organised crime, statements are written in bullets, not words. To understand the significance of the Costa del Sol double murder, one must first look at the blood-soaked history of Scotland's most infamous gangland feud, the Lyons versus Daniel conflict. For over 2 decades, these two families have been locked in a brutal power struggle, transforming Glasgow's criminal landscape into a battleground of firebombs, drive-by shootings, and retaliatory violence. The origins of the feud trace back to the early 2000s when territorial disputes and competing drug empires sparked a series of violent confrontations between the families. The Lyons clan, originally based in Postle Park, quickly rose in stature by dominating the city's lucrative heroin and cocaine markets. The Daniel family, entrenched in the north of the city, saw this rise as a threat to their long-held dominance. What began as low-level turf war escalated into a fully-fledged gang war. Attacks became more organised, more brazen. Homes were torched, bullets were sprayed into family vehicles. Innocent relatives were targeted, as each side sought not just to hurt the other, but to humiliate and destroy. In 2017, a failed assassination attempt on Ross Monaghan outside a Glasgow school captured national headlines. Monaghan survived despite being shot in the back, a testament to how personal and public these attacks had become. Despite numerous arrests over the years, convictions were rare. Fear, loyalty, and the code of silence within gangland circles kept many witnesses silent. Even when prominent figures like cocaine trafficker Jamie, the Iceman Stevenson were finally jailed, the feud endured. It became generational, younger members stepping into old vendettas, adopting grudges as a rite of passage. Recent years have seen this conflict bleed into new territories. From Glasgow estates to European ports, the influence of both families now stretches far beyond Scotland. But while operations became more sophisticated, the violence never softened. Firebomb attacks on family homes, shootings in residential areas, and ambushes on motorways became part of the feud's modern playbook. The double murder in Fuengirola reignited fears that this war is far from over. With Monaghan and Lyons Jr. gone, rumours swirl about power vacuums and retaliation. The feud, already global in reach, has now written its latest chapter in Spain, and it's a chapter soaked in blood. Ross Monaghan and Eddie Lyons Jr. weren't peripheral figures in the underworld. They were frontline players in one of Scotland's most violent and enduring criminal networks, the Lyons family. Their names have long been whispered in courtrooms, pubs, and police briefings. Now, they are at the centre of one of the most audacious gangland assassinations in recent history. Ross Monaghan, 41, first came to public attention in 2012 when he was tried and ultimately acquitted for the murder of Kevin Gerbil Carroll, a feared enforcer for the rival Daniel gang. That high-profile trial placed Monaghan in the crosshairs of both law enforcement and gangland enemies. Though cleared of the charge, he never truly left the radar. In 2017, Monaghan narrowly survived an assassination attempt outside a primary school in Glasgow. Shot in the back at close range, he miraculously walked away, cementing his reputation as a hardened survivor of Scotland's brutal underworld. Eddie Lyons Jr., meanwhile, carried the weight of a legacy. As a scion of the Lyons family, his role was as much about status as it was about enforcement. Though less publicly known than Monaghan, Lyons Jr. was understood to be deeply involved in the family's international drug operations. His presence in Spain, often viewed as neutral ground or a place of retreat for British criminals, suggested ongoing ties to high-level activity. His murder alongside Monaghan has now exposed just how far his influence and his enemies reached. The pair's decision to meet at Manhand's bar on a busy Champions League final night seemed, on the surface, routine. But sources suggest this was no ordinary catch-up. There are whispers it was a summit, perhaps to resolve disputes or to discuss fallout from a missing consignment of drugs that has reportedly caused friction within the Lyons network. Their deaths, executed with military precision, were not random. They were targeted, chosen. And whoever ordered the hit sent a message. No one is too senior, too seasoned, or too well connected to avoid retribution. Both men leave behind families who, despite their associations, are now left to grieve in public. The reverberations from their deaths will echo across Glasgow, Malaga, and beyond. A reminder that in this world, peace is a fleeting illusion, and status is a target. It was just after 6 p.m. on Saturday, the 18th of May, 2024, in the Andalusian coastal town of Fuengirola. Manhand's bar, a popular Irish pub frequented by British expats and tourists, was buzzing with anticipation as the Champions League final played on its televisions. The warm evening air carried laughter, clinking glasses, and the hum of conversation, until it was shattered by the sharp crack of gunfire. A black car pulled up abruptly outside the bar. Witnesses say a hooded gunman leapt from the vehicle, moved swiftly toward the entrance, and opened fire at point-blank range. Chaos erupted. Screams filled the air. Patrons dove for cover under tables and ran into nearby shops. Within seconds, Ross Monaghan and Eddie Lyons Jr. were lying motionless on the pavement. Their lives ended in a hail of bullets. A third man was wounded, but his identity and condition remain undisclosed. The gunman then fled the scene with an accomplice, vanishing as quickly as he had arrived. Spanish police cordoned off the area, and emergency responders declared both Monaghan and Lyons Jr. dead at the scene. Forensic teams combed the street for shell casings and CCTV footage while the Violent Crime Unit took over the case. Early reports mistakenly identified the victims as Irish before confirming their Scottish nationality. Eyewitnesses described the attack as professional, fast, and terrifying. "It felt like something out of a movie," said one British holidaymaker. "We were just watching the match, and suddenly people were running, glass was smashing, and someone shouted, 'Gun!' Authorities believe the timing was no coincidence. The high-profile match meant the bar was guaranteed to be busy, ensuring the hit would be witnessed, but also offering the shooters a degree of chaos in which to escape. It was a signature gangland move, public, theatrical, and designed to send a message. Speculation quickly turned to motive. Was this linked to the Lyons versus Daniel feud? Was it a power play from another syndicate? Or was it, as some suggest, fallout from a failed drug shipment that triggered distrust within the Lyons' own ranks? As detectives in Spain comb through evidence and liaise with UK police, one thing is certain. This was a hit with international consequences, carried out in one of the most watched and symbolic ways possible. As investigators work across borders, several competing theories have emerged to explain who wanted Ross Monaghan and Eddie Lyons Jr. dead, and why. The execution-style hit in Fuengirola had all the hallmarks of a professional contract killing. But was it an external act of war, or the product of internal betrayal? The most widely speculated theory points to the long-running feud between the Lyons and Daniel crime families. With its roots in territorial disputes and cocaine trafficking in Glasgow, the rivalry has cost lives, torched homes, and torn families apart. Monaghan, a known Lyons affiliate, had already survived one assassination attempt, widely believed to be orchestrated by Daniel loyalists. The sophistication of this hit, coupled with its daring public setting, fits the Daniels pattern of high-risk, high-impact retribution. However, Monaghan's and Lyons Jr.'s deaths may also signal deeper fractures within the Lyons organization itself. According to sources close to law enforcement, a massive consignment of drugs, potentially worth millions, recently went missing. Tensions over who was responsible reportedly spiraled into distrust and division. In the paranoia-fueled world of organized crime, such a loss could easily justify a purge, especially if suspicions of police informants had begun to surface. Theories also swirl around other European criminal syndicates. The Enquirer cartel, whose influence stretches from Ireland to the UAE, have previously been linked to both the Lyons and Daniel factions. Could the killings be linked to shifting alliances or unpaid debts to foreign suppliers? Spanish investigators have not ruled out this angle, given the cartel's active footprint along the Costa del Sol. As of yet, no suspects have been officially named. Spanish police have released no CCTV footage, nor confirmed the recovery of the getaway vehicle. But off-record sources indicate a small number of suspects have been identified through forensic leads and mobile phone data. International agencies, including the UK's National Crime Agency, are believed to be involved in assisting the Spanish probe. The murders have sent shockwaves through the underworld. Trust is eroding fast, with figures once considered untouchable now realizing that borders, reputations, and past alliances offer no protection. The only certainty is that this was no random act. It was calculated, deliberate, and meant to provoke fear, shift power, or settle a score. Who benefits most will tell us who's behind it. In the wake of the Fuengirola double murder, Scotland's criminal underworld has entered a new phase of volatility, one defined by silence, fear, and a looming sense of retaliatory violence. The killings of Ross Monaghan and Eddie Lyons Jr., both high-ranking players in the Lyons syndicate, have created a power vacuum that many fear will be filled with blood. In Glasgow and the surrounding regions, police have quietly stepped up armed patrols and surveillance on known associates of both the Lyons and Daniel families. Community figures report heightened anxiety, particularly in North Glasgow, where past feuds have led to indiscriminate attacks. Petrol bombs through windows, shootings outside schools, even attacks on children. Officers have warned of a critical risk period in the weeks following the Costa del Sol ambush. Whispers on the street suggest that younger Lyons affiliates, eager to prove themselves and avenge their fallen, are already preparing for retaliation. Others speak of internal paranoia, of informants, betrayal, and shifting loyalties within the fractured remains of the Lyons hierarchy. Meanwhile, families of rival gang members are reportedly relocating or seeking police protection, fearing that retribution may not discriminate. Politically, the fallout has triggered renewed calls for tougher organised crime legislation and increased cross-border policing cooperation. MSPs have called on the Scottish Government to bolster support for Police Scotland's Serious Organised Crime Task Force, particularly in addressing international operations. Some critics argue that the current intelligence framework is outdated, unable to keep pace with gangs who operate seamlessly across Europe. Human rights groups, however, warn of the dangers of over-policing in already marginalised communities. They cite past examples where increased police presence has led to tensions, not safety, especially in areas where youth are often caught between gang pressures and criminalisation. For the Spanish authorities, the murders mark a stark reminder of how embedded British gangland influence is along the Costa del Sol. Local leaders in Fuengirola have demanded stronger efforts to monitor and deport known offenders, calling for a clampdown on criminal tourism from the UK. But amidst all the political noise, one reality remains unchanged. the streets are holding their breath. Retaliation may be hours away or weeks, but the clock is ticking. In Scotland's underworld, the code is simple. Violence begets violence. And the next shot fired might not come with warning. The murder of Ross Monaghan and Eddie Lyons Jr. in Fuengirola will be remembered not just for its brazenness, but for its ripple effects across both the criminal underworld and law enforcement communities. These killings didn't just eliminate two key figures from the Lyons hierarchy. They symbolized the brutal unpredictability of modern gangland warfare, where allegiances shift quickly and vengeance knows no borders. In the weeks since the attack, Spanish authorities, with the assistance of the UK's National Crime Agency and Interpol, have continued to gather intelligence. Surveillance footage, mobile data analysis, and forensic traces are being pieced together in a complex investigation that spans multiple countries. Spanish police have remained tight-lipped on progress, but sources indicate that key leads are being pursued. Meanwhile, the vacuum left by Monaghan and Lyons Jr. raises questions about the future of the Lyons operation. Without its senior leadership, and with threats both internal and external mounting, the once cohesive gang risks fragmentation. This could spark a fresh wave of violence, not just in Scotland, but across other territories where the group has operated. For law enforcement, the killings serve as a sobering reminder that the reach of UK-based organised crime is international and increasingly difficult to contain. For the families involved, the pain continues, compounded by the public nature of the deaths and the looming spectre of further reprisals. As the investigation unfolds, one thing is certain: the Costa del Sol double murder has left a mark that neither borders nor bullets will erase anytime soon.